So being the single brown male in the mr.beast Squid Game video, I was chosen to represent number 199, or Ali Abdul, from The Real Show. So what did I do with this amazing privilege? Well, I let him down. Let's talk about it. So first, how did I even end up being in the game? So thankfully, kind of out of luck, I go to university in the same area that mr.beast is based in. And so we sent out a call for participants. So I filled out the form and thankfully got in. I was hyped, right? You know, being in North Carolina, lots of people had talked about seeing mr.beast in random places, and I'd never seen him before, and I thought this was the perfect opportunity to do so. And like the scale of this idea was just insane, right? Like bringing 456 people together, competing for $456,000 on recreated Squid Game sets. Insane. That, and you know, mr.beast is very, very nice with giving out money, so there was a monetary incentive there as well. So a little while later, we get some information on where we need to show up, and there's actually a couple of rules and regulations that we need to follow in order to minimize any breaches of information before the video is actually released. One of these rules was to keep your phone in your car and not bring it onto set, and if you were caught with your phone, you would immediately be kicked out. And you might be like, Arvind, that's not that strict, right? You can go a couple hours without your phone. Well, yeah, I definitely could, but you gotta remember we were shooting for around like 12 or more hours a day, and so you'd go that entire time period without your phone, which is an experience I can say that I haven't had in a long time. But honestly, it was kind of a refreshing experience to not have our phones, and it made our time on set even more special. So on a crisp, cold morning, I remember checking into the set, doing my COVID test, leaving my phone in the car, and then waiting in line to collect my uniform. Watching the other people coming out of the dressing rooms with their numbers and their uniforms on made me a little anxious about what my number was going to be and what my identity was going to be for the rest of the games. Once I collected my uniform, I kind of scrambled to the changing room, looked at my number, and it said 39. 39 was going to be my identity for the rest of the games. And you might be like, Arvind, I thought you were 199. And yes, I was, and I'll explain in a little bit. So anyways, I put my number 39 uniform on. Thankfully, everything fit perfectly, and I headed over to the waiting area where I recognized some friends from college. I can't say too much about the technicalities about the games, but I will say that there was a lot of waiting time in between periods, but thankfully, they fed us really well. I'm talking food trucks, and we used to use these beast books. We had to use these in order to get meals at the food trucks, and they had Gatorades, Cliff Bars, snack bars. It felt like they raided an entire Costco store and just gave us all the food in it. And so here is where the Ali Abdul situation begins. I'm brown. Yes, I'm brown, but I feel like personally that is where my similarities between myself and Ali Abdul end. Ali has curly hair. I have straight hair. Ali is built. He is strong. I am a twig. I am not strong. Now here I am, just exchanged my mr.beast buck for my pancakes and eggs, and I was waiting in line for them. And the person in front of me turns around and was like, oh my God, you caught me off guard. I thought you were Ali for a second. I mean, I'm not complaining though, because Ali was one of my favorite characters in the show. So I was just like, thanks, man. I appreciate it. And as the day went on, more and more people would just say the same thing to me. They'd be like, yo, you look like Ali. And I'd be like, yo, appreciate it, bro. And so I just went with it. But I was still number 39, not number 199. Well, until this moment. So after a while of waiting, we finally are called to line up to take roll before we enter the first game. I mean, this was insane. Like, can you imagine lining up 456 people cohesively, quietly, in an orderly manner? I remember just standing in my spot and just looking around at how many people were around me. Like, keep in mind, this is the end of 2021, so, you know, COVID is still kind of around, and this was honestly like the biggest organized group of people I had seen in a very long time. But about 15 minutes later, we're all lined up, and this is where I want to give Jimmy's team a lot of credit. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes, and especially for this video, there are a lot of people that were not in the video that were really crucial to making it happen. Like this dude right here, you might have seen him in other mr.beast videos, but he was responsible for organizing all 456 of us and making sure that we were informed as to what was going on, and he was in charge of organizing all 456 of us into those lines, which was a crazy feat, I think. Anyways, there we are, all 456 of us lined up, and then he calls out a couple numbers and says those numbers need to come up to the front of the 456 people right now. And you know that feeling in elementary school when your teacher calls you out in front of the entire classroom and you feel like anxious, you feel embarrassed, and you're just scared of the unknown all at the same time? Well, when this guy shouted out number 039, that is exactly how I felt. I felt everyone just kind of looking at me as I slowly walked up to the front. There were some other numbers up there as well. Some of them included number 1, number 456, number 67, and number 199. I still didn't know what exactly I was being called up for, and so I was still really nervous. But then we went back to the changing rooms and I was told to change uniforms with number 199. And I still was confused, but I didn't want to ask any questions, so I just did what I was told. And after I changed, I remember walking back to my spot and seeing the new number 456. He was this Asian dude that I ended up being really close to later in the games. And side note, I'll also be interviewing him on the channel here, talking about his experiences, because he did get all the way to the top 4. But anyways, he looked at me and said, I guess you need to hold me up in red light, green light. And everything finally clicked for me. In order to make the video more interesting, they had chosen particular numbers for particular people to represent the characters in the main show. Returning back to the line as number 199, I was the new Ali Abdul for the MrBeast Squid Game, and it was just an awesome feeling. I'm not gonna lie, I started planning how could I get major screen time, and I wondered how I could use this opportunity to not only improve the video, but as a small YouTuber also help myself out a little bit. This was a once in a lifetime opportunity inside of a once in a lifetime opportunity. So anyways, after a little bit more waiting, we finally enter the red light, green light set. And while it looked awesome in the video, just think about the scenario that we were in at that point. We had waited all day to enter that set, and finally stepping foot in it was just insane. The attention to detail on the walls, the dust setting right above the ground, the giant statue all the way in the back that seemed insanely far away, and then all 456 of us on one side. It was a surreal experience. Nerves started to kick in, and looking around at my friends, I realized I wasn't the only one. And looking at MrBeast re-record his intro a couple times, it was clear we weren't the only ones with the nerves. And the game began. 30 minutes on the clock to get to the other side. My goal was to take it nice and easy, not take any unnecessary steps, and just take my time through it. I remember just locking my hands in place by my side, not allowing them to move at all. But what I didn't realize is that while we had 30 minutes on the clock, that didn't mean that we had 30 minutes to move around. More than half the time was dedicated to the crew going around and recording people, and during that time, we just had to stand still, and if we moved, we would be out. I remember the first red light that was called, I stopped in a place where my knees were bent, and so we waited for at least 5 minutes in that position, and my legs definitely were shaking pretty hard. As I slowly moved forward, I saw some of my friends getting out, but then I saw number 456 hyper-focused straight ahead of me going towards the goal. And as I slowly inched forward, taking my time, Jimmy threw his first trick. After calling red light and waiting a couple minutes to record some footage, he then called another red light. People were expecting him to say green light, and so he caught a bunch of people flinching, and they all got out. This is a bit of foreshadowing for my situation. Thankfully that time though, I was taking it slow, and I didn't flinch at all. People started crossing the finish line and cheering really loudly, and me, still only being halfway through, started to rush a little bit. That was mistake number 1. Then there were my final moments. There were 30 seconds left on the clock, and it was a red light. I was extremely close. I was probably here, and the finish line was here. I was this distance away. But here I am standing, it's a red light, and he decides to call another red light.
Red light! Oh! Dude, I knew that would work!
And I flinched. Well, that flinch was all I needed to get out. And while I stood there hoping that no one saw me, I felt the bubble on my uniform pop, and I knew I was out and sat down. Literally just a couple feet from the finish line. To make matters worse, in the last 5 to 10 seconds, people were just basically rushing to the end. So then I realized if I had just waited a little bit longer, I would have had a surefire chance to get to the finish line. Watching everyone that passed the finish line and were cheering like crazy was honestly kind of a defeating feeling. And while I was happy for everyone that got through and all my friends that made it, I didn't, and I was so close. My dreams for repping number 199 or Ali through the rest of the competition were over right at the beginning. And as I looked at number 456 past the finish line, he looked disappointed at me. Turns out, he didn't need my saving. But yeah, I remember leaving the games feeling so sad. Yeah, we had gotten a lot of money to be in it, but I feel like sometimes experiences are worth more than money. My experience of being Ali in the mr.beast Squid Games was short-lived and I didn't get to where I wanted to be. But as I changed out of my uniform, which sadly we weren't able to keep, and talked to some of my friends, both old and new that I had met then, I realized that the experience that I had already had up to that point was something that very few people had experienced. Meeting people from all across the country was also an amazing experience. There were some parents there that had bought their children merch and then they came to compete in the games as representative for them because they weren't old enough. On top of that, learning about people's aspirations and dreams in that short time period we had was just so cool, and who knows if I'm ever gonna meet them again. Being disconnected from technology and being forced to socialize in the present and just live with the fact that all 456 of us didn't know what the games entailed and had to live with that sense of confusion is an experience that I don't think I would have had anywhere else. Those days have been an experience so different from anything else I could have imagined, and I was just so thankful that I even had the opportunity to be there. So yeah, while I did let Ali down at the end, I was glad that I ever had the opportunity to represent him. I'm also super thankful for you for watching all the way to the end and listening to my story. If you enjoyed, I'd love if you could like the video. I'm an incoming medical student this next year, and while most of my videos might be related to medicine, I also have a passion for videography and storytelling that I want to explore further on this channel. And so if you just want to follow my journey, I'd love it if you could subscribe. Also, my friend George, number 456, who made it to the final 4, has agreed to do an interview on this channel. So if you want to see that, definitely subscribe and it will be coming soon. Anyways, that's all for now. My name is Arvind, number 199, mr.beast Squid Game, Ali Abdul, and thank you so much for watching.